Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Today I'm sharing some cards I made using Paper Rose Studio's Winter Stroll No. 2 6x6 paper pack. There are 18 double-sided pattern papers, 3 each of 12 designs. This is a beautiful collection. I love the colors, and it is listed as a winter collection, although I think you could use this year-round. Now, since it is Christmas in July, I decided to use this collection for Christmas cards. There are so many beautiful floral designs in this collection. There's even the one sheet with the large wreath, and I will be using that on one card. There's some brick pattern paper and also that really lovely wood grain design. If you are interested in this paper collection or any of the products I use in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. I'm using a card sketch for inspiration. This is from Sugar Pea Designs. It's Sugar Sketch number 31. And if you are interested in any of the card sketches I use in this video, I do share all of that information on my coordinating blog post. That link is provided in the description box below, or you can simply head over to KristieMarcotte.com. For this first card, I selected the brick pattern paper and also this linen texture looking design. Using both of those for the background, layering everything on some red cardstock. Then for the featured pattern paper, I have this beautiful floral paper with the blue and red flowers. Rounded all 4 corners using a corner chomper, and I'll layer this piece on that same dark red cardstock. Now I'll use a circle die to cut out that little semicircle in the upper right hand corner. I'll add some double-sided tape on the back side on the right. And since I don't have a scallop border die from Paper Rose, I'm using their Card Creator No. 5 die, since it does have that scallop outside edge. So I cut that out from the same red cardstock, and I'll trim it down so I can add that little scallop border on the right side. So even if you don't have a scallop border die, but you do have a scallop rectangle or square die, you can just trim it down and add it to your card. It's a great way to get more purposes out of one die set. So I'll put some ATG tape on the back of this piece and add it to my card more toward the left side. Then using another circle die that's slightly smaller than that semicircle, I cut out this red circle die cut. And I'll adhere that in place using some liquid adhesive. For the sentiment, I've already stamped this out. This is Christmas Blessings. It's from Paper Rose's Christmas Sentiment stamp set. I cut a fishtail on the left side, and I'll layer this piece on some red cardstock. That way it stands out a little more against that white floral background. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll add a blue bow die cut on that small red circle. And this is from Paper Rose's Tiny Bows die set. And I'll adhere that in place using some liquid adhesive. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love how this one turned out. That floral paper is one of my favorites from the whole collection. Now moving on to card design number 2. The card sketch is from Freshly Made Sketches. This is number 535. I have this beautiful dark red pattern paper for the background that has lots of little branches and red berries. On this sketch, there's one narrow strip, and I decided to add 2. So I have 2 different pattern papers, the gray wood grain and also this white with red leaves. I'll adhere both of those in place, and I did offset them. So one is more toward the right and the other is shifted off to the left. I rounded the bottom 2 corners of the pattern paper and also the gray cardstock that I'm layering this on. I'll put my card front onto a card base, leaving that 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. For the sentiment, I'm using Paper Rose's Crisp Christmas Sentiment CUTAPARTS. I selected Merry Christmas in the white font with the black background. Cut a fishtail on the left side. Before I adhere it to my card, I am putting some scrap cardstock just on the upper area of that sentiment where it goes over all those other layers. And that'll just help keep everything at the same level. Next, I'll add a stitch circle die cut. And since I'm using a larger sentiment than what's indicated on the card sketch, my circle doesn't fit very well, so I decided it would go off the edge. I held the circle up to my card, flipped it over, and trimmed it flush to the very right side, and then glued it down using some liquid adhesive. For an image on my card, I'm using Paper Rose's Christmas Baubles die set. I selected one of the ornaments and cut it out from some red cardstock. I used some silver mirror cardstock for the little top part of the ornament, and then glued it down using liquid adhesive. For embellishments on my card, I'm using the clear crystals from Paper Rose. Put 3 of them around the sentiment. They don't have adhesive on them, so I am using some liquid adhesive and picking them up with my embellishment wand. It's technically listed as a shaker mix, but I love to use them for embellishments. There's 4 different sizes, including some teeny tiny little crystals. For this card, I selected 2 different sizes. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. Now moving on to card design number 3. The card sketch is from OWH. This is number 218. It's one of my favorite sketches, so I know I use it all the time. For the background, I have some craft cardstock, and I decided to add some extra detail using an embossing folder from Paper Rose. This is their hand stitching number 2 embossing folder. It's my favorite from them. I'll be using the deboss side. I added a strip of the brick pattern paper to the bottom. Then I'll layer this panel on some dark red cardstock. Put my card front onto a card base, leaving that 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 5.5 inches by 4.25 inches. For my featured pattern paper, I have this lovely design with the white background and some red berries, branches, and a little bit of a grayish color branch. Layered that on the same red cardstock. For the sentiment, this is another cut apart from the Crisp Christmas sentiment set. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I cut a fishtail on the left side. Before adhering it to my card, I did put some of the scrap cardstock pieces underneath on the left side. Then I'll adhere it in place using some ATG tape. For as often as I've used this card sketch, I'm not sure I've ever placed my sentiment as indicated on the sketch. I always have it a little bit higher. For the 3 small circles on the left, I'll be using some more of the clear crystals. I'll add a small drop of liquid adhesive, use my embellishment wand to pick up the crystals, then press them in place. And for this card, I'm using all the same size crystals. And the glue will dry clear. I know it looks white right now on the card. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For card design number 4, I won't be using a card sketch this time. I selected this really dark blue pattern paper that has the red and brown leaves on it, and I cut this out using a stitched rectangle die. Put some ATG tape on the back and also liquid adhesive along the very outside edge. Since it does have that stitch detail, it'll just help everything lay down nice and flat. And I'll adhere this on some craft cardstock. Put some more ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving that 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. I used the large banner die set to cut out this other pattern paper. It's really pretty. It looks like linen texture, but it's all smooth. I'll just adhere that in the lower left-hand corner. For a little extra detail, and also to bring out some of the red on the pattern paper, I'm adding a narrow strip of red cardstock to the bottom of the card. And I do have some double-sided tape on the back to adhere that in place. For the sentiment, I'm using the tall script words Merry Christmas die set. Cut this out from some dark blue cardstock. Put some liquid adhesive on the back and adhere it on top of that banner. I like the large size of this sentiment, and it has a really fun font. Paper Rose does have several different sentiments using this same font. After I adhere the word Christmas, made sure to dot my I, then I'll add the word Merry. I'm using Barely Art liquid glue. It holds really well, but sometimes it takes a few seconds to adhere, especially since Paper Rose pattern papers have a slight glossy finish on them. but once that glue dries, it's not coming off at all. Next, I'll add a few different ornaments using the same Christmas bauble set that I used on a previous card. Since all of the different ornament dies have openings, either little polka dots or stripes, I decided to add some white cardstock to the back side. To create that background piece, I took the die cut, flipped it upside down, traced the very outline with a pen, and then I'll just trim out that piece going slightly inside that line. Put some liquid adhesive on the back of the ornament and add that white cardstock to the back side. I have glue all over my mat, so I will wipe that off really quickly. Next, I'll put some thin foam dimension on the back side of all of the ornaments. Remove the release paper and adhere them in the upper left-hand corner above the Merry Christmas sentiment. So I have 2 of the ornaments in gold and 1 in red. After placing all of the ornaments on my card, I thought it would look better if they were actually hanging from something. So I'm using some gold moon dust peel-offs from Love from Lizzie, using the narrowest width and adding them above all 3 of the ornaments. I'll just use my craft knife and trim it even along the edge of that craft cardstock layer. Then to finish off the card, I'll add some more of the clear crystals. I'll put 3 of them in the upper left-hand corner and 2 in the lower right-hand corner around the sentiment. Since they are clear crystals, they will blend into that background, but they do have a lovely sparkle when the light hits them just right. So there is my finished card, and again, I did make 2 using this design. I just recently purchased the Merry Christmas sentiment set. I love that large font. I'll definitely be using it for more Christmas cards this year. Now moving on to card design number 5. This background paper is another favorite pattern paper of mine. I love the white with all the gray leaves and then just the pop of red from the little berries. I layered that piece on some red cardstock, and then I layered it again on some black cardstock. I'll add my card front onto a card base. Then I'll add a strip of this gray wood grain pattern paper. I thought about layering that wood grain paper on black cardstock, but decided to go for a more subtle look in the background. For a pop of red, I'm adding a stitched strip die cut, putting it on the lower portion of that wood grain pattern paper. For a sentiment, I'll be using another cut apart. This is "It is Christmas in the heart that puts Christmas in the air." Before adhering that in place, I did add a small scrap piece of pattern paper on the very top, just so it doesn't have that noticeable dip when I adhere it onto my card. Next, I'll be adding one of the bell ornament images. I cut it out from some white shimmer cardstock. I thought this bell worked nicely with the sentiment since it has all those small little red hearts at the bottom. I did put some foam dimension on the back side, and when I adhered it to the card, I made sure that red cardstock strip was behind that row of red hearts on the bell. Then for another little pop of red, I added a small bow to the top of the bell. Final finishing touch, I'll add a few of the clear crystals around the sentiment and image. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. This is definitely my favorite card from the whole set, but do let me know which card is your favorite. I think the red, white, black, and gray colors together give the card more of an elegant look. Now moving on to card design number 6. The card sketch is from Freshly Made Sketches. This is sketch number 1. I selected 3 different pattern papers, have some more of that brick pattern, and I'll use that for the strip that goes across the card. For the rectangle that goes in the background that's at an angle, I use that linen looking pattern. And then I have another beautiful floral pattern with that light pink in the background. Layer all of those pieces on some red cardstock. For the very background of the card, I have some white cardstock with a linen finish. And I wanted a little more color, so I'm using the Juniper Mist ink color and adding a splatter to the background. Once that's all dry, I'll layer this panel on the same dark red cardstock. Put some ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. When I was adding the ink splatter to the background, I tried to focus it from the lower left-hand corner toward the upper right-hand corner, since most of the card will be covered up with the pattern paper pieces. I'll use some liquid adhesive and adhere that angled pattern down first, then my brick strip. Before adhering the floral piece, I will put some scrap cardstock pieces on the back side. So first I'll add this large piece and then just a small piece on the very right hand side. I'll adhere that in place using some liquid adhesive. Next I'll add a couple of branches, one in white and one in blue, and these are from Paper Rose's Ella's Garden Layering Scribble Leaves die set. For the white branch I used some shimmer cardstock, so it has that little extra detail. I'll glue both of them down using liquid adhesive. And I'll layer the blue branch on top of the white branch. I'll also add a little bow, and I use some pearlescent cardstock for that bow. The sentiment, this is another cut apart, peace, love, and joy. I cut a fishtail on the left side and I'll adhere it in place using some liquid adhesive. And for a final finishing touch, I'll add a few red gem stickers in the upper right hand corner. And these are just some gem stickers I have on hand. So there is my finished card, and this time I made a total of 4 using this design. For card design number 7, I'm using the pattern paper that has this large wreath and the beautiful red flower. Since I don't make 6 by 6 inch cards, I trimmed down that panel to 5 inches by 3 3/4 of an inch. Layered that piece on some black cardstock. Then for the very background of the card, I'm using that beautiful red pattern paper. You'll only see about 1/4 of an inch of that border. Next, I'll add a black cardstock strip to the very bottom of that wreath paper. This is about 3/4 of an inch wide. And before adhering it down, I will put those scrap cardstock pieces on the very outside edge. So I just need teeny tiny little pieces. They won't be visible, so it doesn't really matter what color cardstock I use. I just grab whatever's closest to me while I'm making my cards. And to get this black cardstock strip at the same level, I will need to add 2 small pieces of the red cardstock. Just glue those in place. Then I'll adhere it to my card just on the very lower portion of that wreath pattern paper. Next, I'll add my sentiment, and this is from the same cut apart set. Happy Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'll adhere those on the inside of the wreath, putting them at an angle. For a final finishing touch, I'll add some more of the clear crystals. Put 2 of them in the upper left-hand corner and 3 around the sentiment. And there is my finished card. I was only able to make 1 since that is the last of the wreath pattern paper in this pack. Overall, it's a very simple card design, but with that beautiful pattern in the background, I don't think the card needed anything else. Now here's another look at the 15 cards I made using Paper Rose Studio's Winter Stroll No. 2 6 by 6 paper collection. This is a beautiful collection. I love all the colors. And since it is Christmas in July, I decided to only make Christmas cards. Although you could use this collection for other card themes. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. Paper Rose is located in Australia and they do ship their products internationally, but you can also purchase their products here in the US. And I do have links for both locations in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.